Yeah, and if you go in with doing this to protect yourself instead of trying to get them to see it, you'll learn how to set boundaries and what you're going to deal with and what you won't deal with. It's not trying to get them to figure out what you want them to figure out, because that can be not necessarily manipulative, but it's more of like, I'm doing it for the wrong reason.
Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
Let's talk about toxic family dysfunction and everything that comes with that. We got an awesome suggested episode from a fan, which, by the way, if you didn't know, if you click on the podcast description, there's a little link in there and you can drop us a note. Don't ask us questions.
Like
specific.
Expecting us to respond.
It won't let me respond.
Because we can't respond.
One way. It's
just an episode idea of like, what would you like to hear on one of our episodes?
Right. So even if I wanted to respond, I wouldn't be able to.
We wouldn't be able to.
But episode suggestions are something we really appreciate. Someone asked about how to deal with toxic family dynamics. It's a loaded question. To protect the privacy of the person, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but
what are we going to touch on?
Man, everything. And with respect to my own family and our family, they don't listen. But if you do, if you are, I love you. And this is just information for other people. I just want people to know that, because I'm going to speak honestly from my own experience and Paige's own experience here.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of experience with this. We really do. And I think it's one of the most important parts of our story that we've never really discussed because it's tough to do.
We've had one episode.
Yeah, but it was so wishy-washy in it. I'll be honest with you. We just restarted this episode because I felt so wishy-washy in the first 10 minutes of the last one that we did. I'm just going to be the only thing I know how to be, which is just honest and authentic and just
go with the flow. We're going to have a conversation here based on experience.
But I came from a family where there was a lot of this going on, where parental figures have struggled with a lot of other things. Listen, as parents, we do everything that we can to protect our kids from this shit. But oftentimes what happened when they were parents, it changes the way that your kids end up, which is, we've talked about the danger of letting this stuff fester for generations and how we're cycle breakers. That's what we really do here. Paige and I are both cycle breakers. You can be too. But oftentimes if you find yourself in this situation, it's because there wasn't a cycle broken prior. So it's really, really tricky. It's a sensitive subject, and it's something that it's very individual to everybody. So maybe everything we discuss here won't be specific to your situation. Some of it will be, though. Some of it will hit so close to home, it is going to enrage you. This stuff is really difficult to talk about with someone who's not ready to see it for themselves, AKA your addicted partner. Because oftentimes that's the dysfunctional family system, even though you might have some own family shit of your own. Oftentimes when there's an addict present, there's a family system behind that with some lack of boundaries. There's some emotional enmeshment. Oftentimes there's going to be someone with some wealth. That happens a lot.
We're going to talk about that a lot.
That uses it to control people, to keep them right where they want them. Adult children of emotionally immature parents, adult children of alcoholics, like all this stuff is very relevant. And it's going to be a fun episode as we kind of wade through carefully as best we can.
And we're going to help partners and spouses make some decisions based on their own values and how to navigate these situations. Because I know a lot of spouses, we get these questions all the time about their partners or their husbands' dynamics in their families, and like, how do I get them to stop enabling? How do I get them to see that they're actually harming them? How do I get, all the time we get this, and we just haven't really been able to have this discussion yet. And I think that we're going to help you make some decisions that will really help you get through this and navigate it.
Yeah. And maybe one of the most important and difficult conversations you'll ever have, which is, how do I get my spouse to see that their family is dysfunctional? I mean, that's been a problem in marriages since the beginning of time without alcohol, right?
Right.
How many in-law jokes exist? Millions, maybe. But this is serious stuff here. This is serious stuff, especially if you have children too.
Yeah, this is life and death.
Yeah, it really is. And so we'll talk about how we had those conversations, what that went like, and ultimately where we landed and what that looks like today. So hope it's going to be helpful for you guys. If this sounds familiar, you're going to want to stick around. Hey, shout out to SoberLink. If you don't know what SoberLink is, quit skipping my ads, please. All right. Our partners help make this show possible. We hope that you guys can at least respect that and understand that, but also support the companies that support our show. They were willing to put their money where their mouth is and stand behind the show so this can keep being produced. We have an editor. We've got expenses. There's all kinds of stuff. And we really, really appreciate SoberLink standing behind us. But it's not just about standing behind us. We said from day one, we would never rep anything or shill any product that we didn't actually believe in. So if you hear us talking about, it's because we believe in it. If you're someone like me and you're trying to really reestablish trust, your word's probably no good anymore. All the times you sat there and said, I'll be different this time. It's going to be different this time. No, I haven't been drinking. And you've lied. Your word's worthless. So what can you do? What options do you have? I've always maintained, and I still maintain, that the best apology of all time is change behavior. And it's change behavior over a long period of time that really rebuilds trust. But you know what can expedite that, especially in the early days? A tool like SoberLink. It's an accountability tool. You set up, like I would set up Paige. I would set up like my friends that were really supportive of my journey. Maybe you set up a pastor or someone who's really important.
Therapist.
Yeah, a therapist, a mentor in your life. And you put them on your notification list. Use the device. Let's say you use it 3 or 4 times a day. You blow into this thing morning, afternoon, evenings, and they get notifications. It helps hold you accountable, and they can hold you accountable too. If you're serious about it, what are you scared of? Why would you not is my question. All right. They're offering 50% off. So it's not money. So what are you scared of? You're scared that you're not serious. So make yourself serious. Dive in with both feet and put some skin in the game with a tool like SoberLink. And you can't cheat this thing. It is tamper-proof. It has alarms on it that go off and alert SoberLink's team if you try to open this thing up and jack with it. They've thought of everything. It's also got military-grade facial recognition technology. So the person using the device is the person that's supposed to be using the device. You can't put an air pump in it or have your friend blow or whatever genius scheme you've thought of. They thought of it first. It can be really useful to help rebuild trust, especially in those other days. It's going to help spouses. Someone like Paige. How many times did I tell you that you were crazy? How many times do you think?
A lot.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
To the point where like you start to question, like, damn,
Am I crazy?
Am I crazy? Do I know if someone's been drinking or not? Well, guess what? They're going to know now. They're going to know the difference between you just having a bad day and you being tired. Because it'll say like they're not drinking. They really are just having a bad day. In which those cases, you guys can have some serious heart-to-hearts about, hey, how can I support you through this? I know it's a tough time and you can get more open. And if you're lying, it's going to validate that too. They're going to be like, I knew it. When his eye starts to droop, he's drunk. I knew it. And the device helps them tell right from wrong.
Helps them build up their own ability to trust themselves, not
Absolutely,
just you.
Right? And that's a huge gift that you can give to your spouse or partner. If you're serious about this thing, get a SoberLink. Also, hey, if you're in a custody battle, you can get these things written into your custody agreements.
Yep.
Trusted by over 200,000 people. It's court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada. It's considered the gold standard in court. So you can make sure that your kids are going somewhere where there's going to be a sober adult around. Get one. Get one. SoberLink's offering our listeners on this show 50% off a device. 50% off. In this economy, hey man, I'm not sure if there are any better deals than that. 50% off a device. All you have to do is use our link, soberlink.com/wheels. Again, that's soberlink.com/wheels. Enter your email address in. They'll send you a coupon code, which you can enter, get 50% off that device. So thank you to SoberLink for standing by the show. Thank you for SoberLink for creating a tool that helps people rebuild trust.
Yes.
And let's get on with the toxic family stuff.
All right.
Man, okay. Again, this came about from a listener question. Appreciate those, always do. I just don't reply to too many of them too. And honestly, a lot of them are questions that we've answered before. Like,
Yeah.
Go back and check out old episode titles, like half the questions. But this one was interesting. It was a novel idea, right?
And it hit close to home.
It really did. Like this is something like we really have experience with. It's wild, man. I think that there's some generational things in play here, and I'm just going to kind of spew some thoughts. Again, I should start every episode by saying we're not therapists. We don't have degrees in this stuff. We're not doctors. We're just two people with opinions that have microphones. That's it.
And experience. We do have experience
in this. And I want you guys to know that as we're talking about this. You may not agree with everything we have to say, but I think it's going to be helpful for more people than it is not.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a shift at some point, I think, that took place with our generation. So we are elder millennials, right? Born mid-'80s. I don't ever remember my grandparents being around, like for family vacations, any of that stuff, really. Were yours?
No, we had our own. We were like separate.
Yeah.
We had our own family vacations, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have it like big family vacations or anything like that.
And I think every generation wants to improve upon the things that they notice previous generation could have done better, right? So I think what changed with us in our generation is our parents became really involved in our lives, especially once we had our own kids. They wanted to be more involved. They wanted to go to like there's Grandparents' Day at schools now. We have that here in our state. I don't know if you guys do in your state, but they have like Grandparents' Day. We never had that growing up that I remember. Grandparents want to travel with their children. They want to be more involved. And there's really nothing wrong with this.
No.
On the surface, there's nothing wrong with this. You know, it's better than what their parents gave them, which was nothing. Very little support because they came from a generation that didn't offer that either. But things oftentimes they swing in this pendulum, right? Where they go from one extreme to the other. In a family with addiction, it's never more extreme. Not just being involved with your adult children, but being so enmeshed with them that you don't see them as adults. You don't see them as individuals. You don't see their children as their children. They are your grandchildren. You have a really hard time setting aside your role as the patriarch or the matriarch. And when you have children that are struggling with addiction, oftentimes what you have is someone who's emotionally stunted in their growth. And they do behave like a child at times, and you do have to parent them more than you would like. At this point in their lives, in their 20s or 30s or 40s, you should be done with that stage of really engaging and parenting them. But you feel like as their parent, you have to stick around. You have to keep doing that stuff and providing that support. But it's not always genuine. A lot of times what happens is family systems, the very family that addict came from, had something to do with it. Okay, I'm not a family systems expert by any means. If you want to know more about this, you can read more about the Bowen family system, where we talk about the process of individuation. Like I mentioned, becoming an individual. That's a Carl Jung concept. As people grow up, they individuate. They become their own person, their own values, their own ideas, and they may not be the same as their family of origin. And that's a very common thing. In addicted family systems, it's really not. A lot of times you stick around and you hover with the failure to launch too close to that family system that created this dynamic, and it creates serious issues in your marriage. Because like in our marriage, I was carrying all this stuff, and you came from whose family's normal, right? But you had more normalcy than I did.
Yeah, I had like just more structure.
Yeah, you didn't have enmeshment.
No, I didn't. My parents actually encouraged us to be individuals. Like it was a thing of like, I'm raising you to live life. I want you to be productive members of society. You know, that's my goal as a parent. It's not to parent you for the rest of your lives, which I do understand. Some people have that mentality. And I feel like our goals as parents is not to necessarily parent our children for the rest of their lives, but I think that our roles change. It's more of like being mentors or something like that.
Someone
or
they
more
can
like
trust and lean
someone
on.
they can trust, somebody that they can talk to about any disagreements and stuff like that, and just be there for them. But I see where a lot of times that just those roles don't change. Like even adult parents look at their adult children as children and how they would control them.
Yeah, and enmeshment is an interesting one. Enmeshment, it looks like closeness. It looks like a family that just, they're super tight. But if you've ever, for the first time you're around them, you're going to be like, something feels off about all this. And you're not really going to be able to put your finger on it.
Yes.
Because it looks like closeness, but it's actually control. That's really what it is. Coming from the parentals.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries allow for disagreement. They allow for freedom of ideas. If there's quote unquote love that disappears when you set boundaries, that's not love. That's conditional compliance, if anything. And a lot of times there's that present, right? And as the spouse, likely the one who sees this, no one's going to catch more shit than you because you're the one that sees the dysfunction. They don't see it. They're in it. Remember, even your spouse is in it. This is the system they were raised in. So when you bring it up, you're going to think you're having a fight about, our families are just different. No, but you're fighting about something a little deeper, and they're not going to know that. It's going to cause some serious disagreement within you two. This shit ends marriages. Like, frankly, this is tough. And then I think you've also got like the work of Claudia Black or Buck? Look at my notes. Black. Claudia Black. Her work with family like roles within an addicted family system. So you've got like the hero, you've got the
golden child.
That's like the parentified child, the one that tries to be the responsible one. You've got the addict, you've got the scapegoat, you've got like the mascot. You've got all these different roles that are present in an effort to create a functional family system, and they're well studied. These things are very apparent. You can go through the list of them and you can probably find each person in the family that you're talking about and be like, oh, that's him and that's her. And that's, yeah, it's well studied here.
We actually, so we did that exercise when Matt went to rehab. And he had to fill out like all the people within his family that would go through that applied with each one. And I was thinking about my family and I was like, I can't do that with my family. I can't identify it with my family. And that was kind of a thing like, oh, does every family have this, or is it just different dynamics of families that have this? And it seems like it's mostly those that have, addiction or emotionally immature parents, narcissistic behaviors. And there was something else. I don't remember what.
Yeah, when there's enmeshment and there's not a healthy family system with normal boundaries and individuation in which people grow up and they're no longer like a part of that close-knit family that once was when you were children, you fall into these roles to help try to keep the chaos under wraps, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's common in dysfunctional families. You're not going to find too much of this in a normal, healthy family system. But it creates a lot of issues, I would say, especially within a marriage. So you saw this years before I saw this. Years before.
This in high school, baby.
Man, it's the spouse is going to see it first. Oftentimes, it's going to be the partner who sees the dysfunction long before the person that's born into it can, because you only know what you know. You know what I mean? And I think that we're all defensive of our family of origin in a lot of ways because it's not all bad. It's not all bad, right? There's some stuff that you're very proud of. That's your family, like that's your history. That's your lineage, your bloodline, however you want to put it. And you love those people and you're going to defend those people because you see the best in those people. Sometimes the best, though, doesn't cover up the worst. Sometimes those worst things they override any bit of good that can be done there. Sometimes those negative traits are much bigger than you think. And I know I tried to minimize a lot of this stuff over time.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to make excuses for it. I tried to normalize it as best I could. And it becomes indefensible the more that you learn. And the more, I guess, the more that you individuate and the more that you grow up and you become emotionally mature and you grow up really, and you start to look back on it. You're like, oh, that was a lot more fucked up than I realized, wasn't it?
But you don't really get to see how fucked up it is until you begin to remove yourself from it.
You're right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not something that your spouse is going to be able to see if they are still in it, if they're still doing the same thing they've been doing for so long within that family and they're still within that family dynamics and they're still fighting for it. They're not going to be able to recognize that. And that's just the hard truth. I'm going to be honest with our listeners here is that what we're discussing today was way more difficult on our marriage than addiction was.
Tenfold. Not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Addiction was just the symptom, right? Like it was just the one thing that came from this. This was the deeper issue that caused a lot of the problems within him and within our marriage. So, and I think that a lot of people listening who do have these dynamics can understand. And as the spouse can be like, you know what? I get that. That completely makes sense. That it's the family dynamics that like just make it just so hard to deal with within your marriage and have, communication and talk about it.
Yeah. You're going to be having a one-sided argument for a very, very long time.
Very long time.
Buckle in.
Mm-hmm.
Years.
Mm-hmm.
Years.
And you will feel betrayed as a spouse. You will feel betrayed. Not just from, we talk about betrayal trauma with addiction. Like I had a lot of betrayal just from this because I felt like anytime I would bring something up, like I was the bad guy. I'm the wrong one. I'm the one who needs to just deal with it and minimize it and normalize it and just be okay with it. But my gut, my values and all of that were never okay with it. It just wasn't. And there was a point where it was like, you know what? I'm speaking up. I'm going to continue fighting this fight because I have children to protect. And that's when it became even more powerful.
Yeah, man. I think that our generation, speaking of generations, I think our generation's been accused of being incredibly selfish about things. and that we set boundaries and that we do like to be seen as individuals and like, adults and kind of live our own lives and things like that. And I don't want people to misconstrue this and think that your in-laws are going to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, your gut was right. Listen, there's going to be some quirks that families have that aren't that big of a deal.
Right.
They just do things differently. That's almost the fun in it. If you've ever seen,
for sure.
One of my favorite movies is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Example there, right? You got these families from completely different parts of the world with different values.
Different
and
cultures.
They learn how to find the middle ground. This isn't what we're talking about.
No.
Here, okay. This is much deeper and much more sinister than that.
Harmful behaviors.
There's essentially a family system that is based on control and enmeshment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times there's wealth involved that keeps people in check.
Yeah,
and you're coming in as an outsider, completely unaware of how this operates. And your spouse is going to be unaware too. Like I was unaware of how this operated. You have inklings at times, but the more you spoke up, the more I saw. You will know it when you see it. Your gut will be screaming at you. Your instincts are going to be saying to you, this is crazy. I can't fucking believe this. It will come up. You're not going to be sure how to handle it. And these are some of the biggest fights that we ever had, because the addict is going to minimize this. They're going to say they're not that bad. They're going to come up with all the common excuses like I just made about My Big Fat Greek Wedding to say, oh, like my family eats, this. It's not like that. It's like, no one's mother is calling them at like 10 p.m. to talk to them about their marriage issues. They're not guilting you for not coming to a dinner because you were at something else that you were doing with your wife. They're not doing this kind of shit. They're not threatening you with financial control in some sense that we're not going to pay for your vacations this year. We're not going to send your kids, or we're not going to contribute to your kids' private school fund or whatever it might be. Like this is deeper, y'all. It's deeper shit. This is control. This is narcissism. These are selfish tactics that families use to keep that unhealthy system together. Very present in a lot of addicted families. I know that I came from a system like this. And I just remember like we had so many fights about this. And I feel really, really guilty for it. But it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. If it's what you came from, how are you supposed to know any different? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
I wish I would have figured it out a lot sooner than I did.
But it wasn't easy for me because I was like, okay, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it isn't that bad. I tried for years and years to gaslight myself. I did. I tried to, just say, okay, I think he's right. Maybe I'll just need to deal with this. Everything will be fine. But it never was. The pattern still continued and it got worse over time. And then there was just something happened. And I was like, all right, I can't just shut up now because now it's affecting me and it's affecting my kids and it's affecting our lives. Like I'm not going to shut up anymore. Like I'm going to continue to hold boundaries or whatever it is. We'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, that's, I don't remember where I was going with that.
I mean, I think you're hitting on how we can minimize this in so many ways because we know inherently that our families are going to be different and we have to find a way to get along and accept some things we may not like about them. But these things are going to be more about your values. This is going to be some serious type shit.
Yes. This
is going to be crossing lines that should never be crossed. I mean, sometimes you have parents that enable their children that use drugs with drugs. Maybe they trade drugs with them. Maybe they use drugs with them. This stuff happens. That stuff is not normal.
Nope.
It is not normal for a parental figure to be doing stuff like that. It's not normal. Okay. It's also not normal for parents to be supporting someone financially for the rest of their life. It's not normal, I would say. I think that a lot of times it's in rare circumstances, this can be a very genuine thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a reason for this, but a lot of the times this is a way that parents control their children.
But they look at it as caring. They look at it as love. They look at it as you're my child. I'm supposed to take care of you. But they don't realize that it's actually doing more harm than good. You have to allow your kids to sink or swim at some point in their life.
I mean, it has the illusion of generosity.
Yes.
It looks like generosity, but it's really used to maintain power and control. Wealth is anyway. I've heard more stories than I can count from people who've been to treatment like a dozen or more times, and their families are paying for that. And then when they get out, they want the guy to come home and live with them, right? They want to keep the spouse in the dark about a lot of this stuff because they know what's best. Then they're going to try to control this person. Maybe it's through financial measures like buy them a car, or maybe you're helping with rent, or maybe you're offering to rescue them in any number of ways. But there's always strings attached to this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time there's strings attached. It is, I will give you this in exchange for your loyalty to allow me to exercise control, to be in charge, to keep you right where I need you. This happens a lot, man.
What about those who go to rehab over and over and over again because their family is able to send them there because they have the money? What is your thoughts on that?
I think that rehab's just rehab. It's weird to me that we think that that's the step that you need to take as soon as you have a problem, is to go to rehab. I think that we've kind of been trained that way by the industry, and by maybe it's just by pop culture and films and things like that, is that when someone has a problem, the first thing they do is they go to rehab. I know many more people who didn't get sober in rehab. You can get sober any number of ways. Rehab centers. I mean, I don't know. It's a rather ineffective industry if you think about it. Why would you need to go 14 times? You're not learning something new the 12th time that you didn't learn the 11th time.
I understand that. But as families, what do you think they should be doing?
You want my opinion on this?
Yes, I want your opinion on this, because I can give my opinion too, and I don't care.
I don't think you should be funding someone's treatment that many times.
No, I don't believe so either.
It's hard for me to say because I want to eat my words if my kid ever ends up in that situation. If you could, would you? You know what I mean?
Okay. But we know that consequences are an important part of this process.
Yeah.
And if you're continuing to fund this, they're not learning anything because there's no consequences. Like, I know of people who get funded and then they come out and then they have their whole life funded by their parents because they're like, I need to give for you. Because they're able to do it. When that person's not going to learn anything, they're possibly going to die. And that's just the reality of it, because the parents are continuing to fund their lifestyle, even coming out of rehab. There has to come a point where we cut that. You have to cut that. They have to learn. They have to struggle. They have to learn to be resilient.
You're right.
They are feeding their addiction with money.
Yeah. And it's easy to stay sober in a bubble. It's easy to stay sober in that bubble, you know? I think a lot of parents feel like they're the ones who are responsible for that recovery when they're paying for you to be sober in a bubble for 30 days. And then they try to make it easy on you when you get out too. You know, instead of getting a job like you're supposed to, they'll just keep funding you so you can stay in a sober living house and sit on ass and do nothing. And a lot of people do that. And you're not learning the skills necessary to be sober on your own when you get out. You're being enabled to just keep doing what you're doing. If like at some point you cannot get well in the same environment that got you sick. And that includes the people around you. That includes the things around you, maybe even the place that you live. That doesn't necessarily mean that moving across the country is going to fix all this.
No.
But you're not going to get sober and stay sober, usually anyway, with all those safety nets around you.
Right.
You get we really like long-term sobriety and like really learning the shit the right way. It comes with adversity, and it comes with a struggle of having to figure out life is fucking hard on a good day, you know, like doing it sober is really hard. You got to figure that shit out though at some point.
Right. But if we're talking to spouses, which most of the time we are,
yeah,
and they're witnessing this, I just want to validate them and let them know, because I know a lot of them are like, why do they keep funding them? Why do they keep continuing to do this? And I know that it's hard, and I feel for you. So I just want to let you know that I see you, and I know that you feel like this needs to stop. And that's why I brought this up, was because I wanted to, you know, validate those that might be going through this. That it's not okay to continue to fund that over and over and over again, because it's not helping anybody.
Yeah.
But they look at it as caring. They look at it as like, these are my kids. I need to do this. I need to make sure, you know, I'm doing whatever's possible. But that's not helpful. It's hurtful. In
some ways, I wonder if they're just pawning off like the real work of being a mentor as a parent, or holding boundaries and things like that on the treatment industry. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, let's just send them to treatment again. But what are you going to change? What are you going to change as a family? What are you going to change in your dynamic with this person? Yeah, that's why the family dynamics do have to shift. What kind of consequences will there be? Like, I've always said that consequences really drive a lot of good behaviors, good or bad consequences, but consequences, like repercussions, these things, right? These actions that have a return action. It's just, if you're not going to do any of that stuff, it's not going to do any good. Keep funding it all you want. They're going to keep cashing your checks, but nothing's going to get different. Yeah. You know, I knew a guy who'd been in like 20 different treatment centers, and his family was funding a home that he was in, and boundaries for them looked like getting rid of his Escalade and getting him like a Camry instead. cutting down on what he was able to access from his trust fund. Guy's still a mess. He's probably in his 50s now.
Mm-hmm.
Still hasn't figured it out, man. That family keeps him so sick, and you can't tell him any different because he's hooked to it. He's hooked to that system, and that's the fucked up part about this. It's almost like putting golden handcuffs on somebody. The family's as guilty as anybody about this shit. I know that I've talked about my stance on addiction.
We're talking about the family of origin. I just want to make sure that we're
family of origin
so
here.
clear on this, because sometimes we think of, when we talk about families, we might think of like us. You know?
The family of origin, man. The family of origin, like operating in a space they have no business operating in anymore. Like that's an adult at this point. You need to treat them like an adult and stop treating them like a child. Dysfunctional family systems operate in a way that they've never really matured beyond, hey, these are my kids and this is how you parent kids. And a lot of times they use wealth as a way to not have to actually parent people. They use wealth as a way to control people. There's always strings attached with these kinds of agreements and arrangements, and it's beyond fucked, man. I remember going through stuff like this where there was always strings attached. Love and money were equivalents, and that meant like if you were given something, there was an expectation in return that you would then like check up on people more often. You would reach out, you would stop by, you would do any number of things that had nothing to do with the money. Like you should never trade money for those things.
Right.
You should never, that should never be in the same sense. Like if you're going to do something for someone to be generous, just do that with nothing, no expectation in return. But these systems don't work that way. It's transactional. Everything's transactional here. Everything's for sale, including your loyalty. Addicts who don't think for themselves, who aren't thinking clearly, who are incredibly immature, they flourish in these kinds of systems. They're not going to leave them on their own, especially while they're still using.
Right.
While they're still dependent. The only way to get out is to break free from that system. And that, like any other thing in addiction, has to be a decision of your own making. It's nothing that you can necessarily convince me to do because God knows you tried. It's nothing that anyone else can convince them to do. They have to want it for themselves, truly have to want it for themselves. This process took a lot longer than not drinking.
Oh, yeah. Like this happened after sobriety. Like, I mean, it happened all the way through our relationship, but like the process of deconstructing everything, you know, like it happened years after sobriety. It wasn't just while you were in addiction. We couldn't even touch that stuff. I would bring it up, but it didn't mean anything.
I remember being told in the treatment center that I really needed to go talk about all this stuff. And I was like, nah, I ain't worried about that shit right now. I just want to get sober and get my life back in order. I want to fix my marriage. I want to do all that stuff. I'll get around to that stuff one day.
It worked for you, but it didn't work for me. I think that was the problem, if we think about it, because you talk about doing the how, not the why.
Yeah.
But eventually you do need to deal with the why, or you're not going to really break the cycles of this demon within your own family.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm still just being really wishy-washy about all this. So I came from a family where one of my parents struggled with addiction and mental health disorders, a lot of them. I was kind of left alone a lot when I was a teenager and left to my own devices. I made some really, really bad decisions. There were no adults around. I mean, another one of my siblings struggled big time with substance use disorder. And the relationship with my mother never really evolved beyond me just being her little kid. You know, she had her own problems, and my family had money, and it covered up everything. It covered up all the problems. You know, like going to treatment was just like it's another Tuesday in our house. Like, okay, someone's in treatment, and when they get out, you know, that person would get babied, and they would be enabled, and there was never any real parenting going on because in my mother's mind, she couldn't handle rejection. So if you reject her, and then that's like, then you, in some ways, like you cut yourself off from the financial piece of it all. And then you deal with the emotional piece of it all, which is really, really difficult to deal with because your adult mother shouldn't be calling you crying about all this stuff. This is like probably a story that might sound familiar to you. As strange as this feels, like it feels rather specific to me. My guess is this is really familiar to a lot of people, where you've got this family unit that is so dysfunctional. You know, God, man, I don't even want to go into all the stories here, but the epitome of dysfunction, and it continues to this very day. It continues. You know, I'm going to turn 40 this next year, and this stuff is still really prevalent. I've had a really, really hard time the last probably 4 or 5 years kind of deconstructing myself from my family because I love each of them dearly. But it's a system that I no longer wanted to be part of. And it's been really, really lonely to figure out what that looks like for me. And for you, I know it's been really tough too, because
Absolutely.
these are people that you love and you have loyalty to. And it's like your family of origin, you know, and I love everyone so deeply, but I don't want to be part of a system in which we are all slaves to this unhealthy person who happens to have a big checkbook. And it's really, really fucking uncomfortable to sit here and say it, but I hope it helps somebody. Because I feel kind of guilty saying all this stuff because it's not about me. I hope that it could help someone else, but it's just, I think it's a really, really common dynamic. And I just know that it was so hard for you to watch all this stuff because you knew right from wrong. I didn't because I was raised in it. And so if you're raised in a war zone, peace feels weird to you. It feels foreign. You learned how to normalize the crazy shit you saw growing up. You know, it's like you get hardened by it. And some of it you carry with you into your own family. And so some of the stuff started to show up. This is like pre-recovery started to show up. Like there was some of those dynamics I had learned and some of those manipulation tactics that were used on me as a child that I'm doing to my own family. It's like, this is not okay. Now we have a serious fucking problem because now this thing is generational. Now it's being pushed down and carried down. And I couldn't really see it. I could write it off and be like, well, there's a lot of people's parents that like help them financially, you know?
Right.
And your big thing was always like, dude, we're supposed to be independent. Like at some point we're going to have to teach children how to do that. How are you going to teach them if you never know how? And so then it became a process for me to really want that for myself because that seemed like a very new and novel idea to me at the time, as crazy that is to say, to break free from that system, you know? It wasn't normal to have your parent guilt you and cry and rely on you for every single emotion. It wasn't normal to be parentified, you know, as a 12 or 13-year-old kid and have to parent your parent, you know, like it's tough, but if you're in a dynamic like this where there's a parent who struggled with addiction or an emotionally immature parent, oftentimes the addict, whoever it is, outgrows that person emotionally when they're probably a teenager, maybe early 20s or something like that. And then you are still in a relationship with this person because they're your parent, but also because they've got oftentimes a wallet that you rely on and you stay married to that system. And if you're a spouse of one of these people, you're along for the ride and it ain't fun. There's nothing good about any of this shit. It is awkward. It makes for incredibly horrible circumstances. And the moment you really start to break free from it is when you will learn how lonely life really can get. You will become a leper. You will become someone on an island. You will be the scapegoat for all the family's problems, but it's worth it. It's worth it. It takes time, but you will eventually find peace in that. And then we talk about a lot of stuff we talk about comes from this, like this story that we're telling.
Yeah.
It's been a huge process of deconstruction for me to figure out what a healthy system really is. I know it's been really tough for you to be the only one standing up and saying, hey, does anyone else think this is fucking weird? Because you're vilified, you're ostracized.
Oh, yeah.
You're the bad guy.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're being critical. You're fucking with status quo.
Right.
And no one likes it, especially the unhealthy dynamic people
Yeah.
that are still in it and they're still enmeshed.
Yeah, but my part in that too is that like I stuck around and dealt with it, you know? Like I was like, I knew this was one of those red flags that I knew about whenever we got together. And I was like, I could have easily just ran off, you know, and been like, okay, I don't want to be a part of that. But I continued to stay within it. And I guess it's because I always saw like major potential in you and hope that you would be able to get out of those dynamics. Not necessarily with my help, but just because you were a leader, like natural leader. And I knew that eventually you would learn how to do that yourself and figure out that this is not the dynamics that you wanted to be in. But I knew that there was going to be a lot of demons that you would have to fight to get through that. I remember somebody asking me if I was like angry with you after you had gotten sober and recovery and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I was never really fully angry with you. I was fully angry with your family of origin because I knew what it came from, like where you came from and where you learned all of these things. But then you started working on it and working on your own and deconstructing and all this stuff. But it was a long process. I just don't know. Like I was just going back to what I was saying about just my part is that I stuck with it for a very, very long time when I could have easily just said, you know, I don't want to be a part of this. This is not the dynamics that I want.
Yeah, you could have gone to one family reunion and been like, fuck this.
Y'all didn't have family reunions. What are you talking about?
Just saying, as an example, you could be like, fuck this. This is crazy, man.
Like, those were my first red flags. It wasn't necessarily you. It was what I witnessed where you came from as a child, whenever we were in high school.
The funny thing about red flags is they often pop up in times whenever you feel like they shouldn't, like you feel guilty almost for having a feeling that something was weird, a red flag, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I love to give people the benefit of the doubt. I will always do that. You do. I think that is a punk rock thing to do. I think that is, you set yourself to be hurt and let down, but I'm willing to do that, to give people the benefit of the doubt and try to see the good in people.
You're Superman. Yeah. That was like, what movie did we just see where Superman. That came from?
That's right.
It's Superman.
But
great movie, by the way.
You are the opposite. You are very hesitant to trust, and you are generally looking for red flags, even if they're not present. You're looking around for them like, something's off here with this motherfucker. I think for every 100 people you meet, you might trust one.
I don't think I was always like that, though. I think I've always just been very...
No, you're a contrarian by nature.
I'm aware. I'm like, okay, I guess you're right. I am.
If the whole world suddenly thinks that black vans are cool, Paige is like, fuck those.
Oh, yeah, I do. I go against the grain. It's something that my brother does that, too. We both do it so bad. And Matt is always... But this is one of those quirks, right, that we were talking about that's like, okay, your family does that, and that's really stupid. But I'm not going to I'm not going to write you off for that, but yours was a little bit different. It was much darker and deeper. When you start to see some
of these emotional red flags, or these financial red flags, or these enabling red flags, or these emotional enmeshment red flags. These are red flags you ought to pay attention to. Okay. Speaking now to spouses here, you got to pay attention to that stuff. This stuff is going to be a problem at some point. Mm-hmm. It is going to come up. The healthier you get, the more obvious and apparent these things become. And that's the bitch of growth. That's the bitch of all of this, that what we try to teach you guys here is that the better that you get, the more well you get, the more obvious and glaring the red flags become. In the beginning, they don't feel like too much, but do pay attention to them over time, and they get worse and worse and worse, especially as you get healthier. But like, what can a spouse even do? I think that was the question. I was like, what the fuck?
What do I do?
What do you do about this?
I've recognized the red flags. I can see that it's dysfunctional, and I don't know how to fucking do this. Well, like we've said before, it's a major process. But first, instead of trying to get your partner to see it, you have to start with your own boundaries. I kind of did the opposite. I tried for years and years and years to get Matt to see it, but I would just follow him. I couldn't set my boundaries because it was really complicated.
How
it was
did you usually
so
handle
difficult.
That kind of stuff? Like, be specific.
How would I handle it?
Yeah, I want to hear some of the stories about how we would talk about this stuff.
What do you mean?
We're trying to tell people what generally doesn't work.
Oh.
Examples of what not to do.
Well, yell at you and tell you like, why did you do that? Why did you respond to that? Why are you accepting that? Why are you talking about that? Why are you answering that call?
Why are you agreeing to that?
Why are you agreeing to that? Why are you thinking this is okay? Yeah, it doesn't work. It makes you look like you're crazy.
It makes you look controlling.
It makes you look controlling.
Not, it makes you look
and I mean, I did it in all the wrong ways, but honestly, I don't think I would change anything because I feel like I was going by my values so much. Like I couldn't not say anything.
I would also say that I am the type of personality that does respond well to like criticism. I respond really well to criticism.
You really do.
Constructive or not.
It's crazy.
If I get my ass jumped, I'm listening to you. I'm going to listen.
Only by certain people.
But like,
there are certain people you do not listen to who jump your ass.
But it's almost like, you ever seen those dudes that chisel those statues like with a fucking hammer and a chisel?
Yeah.
That's almost how it works, is like you have to chisel it away little by little. So it does take 1,000 instances of this before you really starts to cement itself.
Yeah.
I don't think I would change anything about it either, other than the fact that we've had, it was a really touchy subject in our home for a really long time. And it still is to some degree.
We're learning to navigate it a little bit better now. I think I don't get so the problem that would happen early on when we weren't really solving any of these problems is that I would get really like triggered in these situations and these conversations. Like he would bring something up and I would just like, I couldn't even control it. Like my body would just go into this this trigger. Like I would get that adrenaline rush and I would feel like I'm going to lose my shit right now. And I'm really angry. And then it was very, very uncomfortable. And I did not like the way it made me feel. I don't really get that much anymore. Well, we're able to talk about it now and like actually communicate. But I know that Matt does walk on eggshells about it sometimes because he doesn't know how I'm going to respond to something that he says. And I don't blame you for that. I was crazy for a very long time. But I feel like we're trying to get that balance.
So the evolution of how this worked in our lives was with this person, specifically my mother. You were the first person to sort of seize contact there.
Yeah. So something happened. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was just so much stuff has happened over the years. This was like whenever we had been together for maybe 15 years or something like that. I decided to let's say that you're like in a group chat, a family group chat or something like that. And you're just like, I can't be in this anymore because I don't feel like this is fake. This isn't working for me. And every time I hop in this chat, I am just angry. Get the fuck out, just leave. And it took me a while to decide to do that because I thought I was going to hurt your feelings or, you were going to get mad at me or whatever. But I didn't care at that point because I was at a self-preservation time. I was like, you know what? I don't really care. I need to get out of this and I'm going to do it. And if he gets upset with me, that's fine. He supported me. He's like, I get it. That's fine. The part that sucked though is that and this is just me being honest with my feelings at the time, is that he didn't leave it too. Like I thought,
felt unsupported by me.
This is my, I don't understand why you can't leave that too. And then I had to kind of put that aside because I'm like, he's not there. He may not ever be there. And that's something that I have to battle with for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I started to detach. I do that.
Maybe holidays, you're not showing up, or birthday
you don't show up as much. You have just more boundaries of where you go. You don't really plan big events anymore. You just kind of start to really physically get out of that situation. But I would, let him go do whatever he wanted to do and take the kids. But again, it almost felt like betrayal because it's like, okay, do you got my back? Do you not? I don't really know. But then I still accepted it because I was like, this is your choice. You go ahead and do what you want to do. But it's really hard, really, really, really hard. That transitional period is hard. It's lonely. There's a lot of questions within yourself where it's like, well, do I really want to be in this relationship anymore if I don't feel supported? Do I really want to have these fake dynamics for the rest of my life? Like I don't think I do because it goes against my values. So I have to decide to have these boundaries or eventually leave or see what happens, Yeah.
And it starts to cause problems. And I think that's when it ultimately for me became something where I was like, I've got to make a serious decision here too. I can't be wishy-washy and kind of keep one foot in, one foot out. Because like I said, it's really tough because there's one hand, it's like your family. And you want your children to know their grandparents or these family members, whoever it might be. Maybe it's not that person's parents. Maybe it's a sibling or something like that. You want them to know that, you grow up your whole life and you also think about, hey man, I've got a family. I'd like to see them as I get older in age and everything else. These are people that had a profound impact, and it wasn't always all bad. But at some point, I think in the last decade, one of the only things that we've ever fought about is that. The only problem I've ever had in my marriage, really, aside like after addiction, was this.
Yep.
It became the only thing that we ever argued about. Mm-hmm. And I got so fucking sick and tired of it. I had to get really honest and take a good hard look at everything. And so we went to therapy about this. We, marriage counseling about a lot of this stuff. And if you can work around it, go for it. It's a lot of work. It's very high maintenance. It's really difficult, especially when the emotionally immature person, that parent that we're speaking of, doesn't take boundaries well, doesn't understand nuance whatsoever. It's all black or white, and they don't understand why maybe someone's not around. And then they start to try to play you against the spouse. And it's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done. I ain't doing this shit anymore. And then at that point, we were kind of alone on an island for several years. In fact, like the family kind of operated just without us. And you're voluntarily kind of left out of everything. And there's a lot of pain associated with it because I think you were probably happier in general, I would say, because you weren't around this dysfunction anymore, and the kids weren't.
Still grief that goes along with that. There's a lot of grief that goes along with it because you feel guilty. Like I felt guilty. I was like, I didn't want this. But then I was like, you know what? But I'm not the villain in this story. I'm not the one who caused a lot of problems. I just decided to get away from the problems. But you question everything. But and you also feel guilty because of your kids. You feel guilty for so many reasons. But there were always reminders. And there were always validation of like, no, I feel like I did the right thing at the right time when I was going through that. Yeah. But it was so hard.
It's so hard, man.
No, it's hard for you. It's hard for me. It's hard for the kids. It's hard for everybody. But I know deep down that in my gut, like with my values, this is what's best to break a cycle.
Yeah. And then from my perspective, once you're out of it for long enough and you dip your toe back in, the red flags are glaring, and they're so glaring, and you will have so little patience for them. You'll see as well that there's very few things you can do. It's just tough. It becomes really high maintenance to see other family members who aren't problematic, because if that problematic family member does show up, and then you have to go out of your way to make outside plans and like drop by more often, or it's more effort, man. It's more effort when you're trying to avoid the unhealthy people in any system. It's really, really, really tough. I think therapy helped us a ton, really understand how this worked.
Yeah. So, but
there are no rules too. I think that I thought there was rules for this kind of shit. You make it up as you go.
Yeah. And I mean, you can try different things out too.
Try it all. Try what works for you.
I always said that it doesn't have to be like this forever, but me personally, this is while you're not waiting for them to see it and you're setting your own boundaries, is that oh my gosh, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I did that twice in this episode. I told people I can't focus lately. Dang.
While we're here, as I'm sitting here holding this rock, if you don't know what one of these things are, if you're someone like Paige, when we talk about like dragged through addiction, it's much more than that. It's all of this stuff too. It's the dynamics of the family that I came from and how that becomes problematic even years later. She's gotten very little recognition. Hold that thought. Very little recognition. This is a way to acknowledge your partner's sacrifices that they've made for you. It's got our logo on the front. It's a rock. And so on the back, it says, "Thank you for being my rock. If not for her, I wouldn't have seen a lot of this stuff." And the fact of the matter is that a lot of this stuff is not okay. And years later, I'm so grateful that I made the decisions that I made to protect myself and to get out of this. I think it's made me better, not just for us and our family and our relationship, but it's made me better to help other people see this stuff as well. So we've got a website where you can check that stuff out. We've got other merch. We're not wearing any of it right now, but we've got shirts and hats and stickers and stuff like that. You can support the show.
Almost out of hats.
Support us, support the show. If you're a listener, we'd really appreciate it. We've also got a program. Tell them about the program, boss.
Yes, it is called Independently Strong. It is to help you set boundaries and do all the things that we're talking about now. Like I built it. We both built it with a licensed therapist, and it's to help you find yourself again, to build yourself up, learn about self-care, learn about the dynamics of your relationship. It's not only going to help you with your relationship with your partner, it's going to help you in this relationship too, like the family dynamics and stuff like that. Maybe even coworkers and employers, it can help you in all different areas of your life. 10 modules, self-paced. You get a weekly call with those that are taking the program, and also me and Matt will hop in sometimes. Sometimes it's member-led depending on activities, but we are offering it for 75% off at independentlystrong.com using code Wheelies75.
Love it. Thank you for that.
What were you gonna say? I remembered what I was going to say. You know how you said that like whenever you had to step out, you stepped back in and you saw the red flags. So this is where I was telling people whenever you're trying to set your own boundaries, you don't have to do it forever, but I had to remove myself and do all these things in order to see things more clearly. Just like we talk about, if people can take like 90 days from their relationship to see things more clearly, do it. You can actually recognize things that are going on that you normalized or minimized. So when I removed myself from a lot of the situations, I was able to see things even more clearly and like, okay, yeah, I'm still doing the right thing. I felt like something was wrong, and I feel like this is not appropriate for me. This is not what I want for myself. So that's part of the reason why I had those boundaries and came out.
Yeah. I think you were just always super clear about what you expected from me in a lot of ways. And these weren't crazy things. Like I remember financial piece being a big one, like parents that were trying to offer money because you know that there were strings attached. There were always strings attached. I was naive in thinking that there weren't, or maybe I was just looking past it in some ways.
Yeah.
Thinking I could, I know, but I know how to handle that shit. Don't worry about it. It's not, I got it. You would always make it very clear, like, that's not okay. It is not appropriate for a grown ass man with his own income to mismanage his money and then call his parents and ask, like, we've got to be better than this. We're adults now. You would never miss a moment to let me know. And that can be problematic, but I do appreciate it. I really do. So
I could not keep my mouth shut.
Let people know that you're not going to participate in conversations where you see the red flags and where you see this kind of stuff. Or if you're being blamed or disrespected in any way, you're not going to participate. Maybe it's physical boundaries. Like she would not go to certain events. And that was a lonely thing. I felt like I was betraying my wife in a lot of ways. And that chiseled away at me as I'm trying to like walk the line between the two worlds. And it just became the point where it's like, I had to make a choice at some point.
Yeah. And if you go in with doing this to protect yourself instead of trying to get them to see it, you'll learn how to set boundaries and what you're going to deal with and what you won't deal with. It's not trying to get them to figure out what you want them to figure out, because that can be not necessarily manipulative, but it's more of like, I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, do it for yourself, do it to protect yourself and your children, not to get them to see what you want them to see. But you can encourage them to do things, which I think I did. And we talked about this earlier, like go to therapy and figure out your family of origin, like the dysfunction, like talk about your family, go do something like that.
There's nothing like watching a therapist's jaw drop as you tell what you think is a normal family story as they're like, that's not normal. Like we had a great therapist. That's not normal. That is not normal whatsoever. Are you joking right now? And then it kind of puts things into perspective. Getting a third party, a trained, licensed third party is really helpful.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about as couples. I'm talking about individually. Yeah. So that you can go and see like what it is going on within your family. Get to the middle of it.
Yeah.
Asking them, I don't remember what I was going to say there either. Dadgummit, Matt.
Dude, you're on top of your
I
game.
Know. What is
Christ.
wrong with me?
Jesus Christ. There were so many ways that you insinuated that I needed to get my shit together and then that this was a problem, that you didn't stand for this and it wasn't okay. And it was never coming from a place of like judgment. It was just like, dude, we have the same values. Why are you bending on this stuff? Like, why are you making so many exceptions for this one particular person? And dude, it caused friction. It caused fights. It caused problems. We fought all the fucking time about this. It was constant. It was the only fight that we had. We get along amazing. We don't fight about anything except for this. So as a spouse, my advice anyway, what worked for us was don't shut up. Don't be quiet. Don't be complicit. Don't just let it go. Don't enable it. If you have a problem with it, say something about it. And you're going to have to explore what that means for you. Maybe it's not what Paige did and just being like, hey, bullshit. I call bullshit. Maybe there's a softer, more gentler approach that you wanted to take. Maybe there's something that you could do. But understand, no matter what you do, there's no shortcut here. I think it just takes time. I think it takes a long time. Remember, this is my family of origin. I grew up in this home. This is what I've known my entire life. To unlearn that kind of stuff, to unwind that, takes a little time.
Yeah.
It takes time. And so you have to be patient. There has to be some dynamic there where like you have to understand that like if you believe that if they get it, then it's going to be great, then you stick with it and you have the patience. But if it's like so lost and they're so enmeshed, you don't think they could,
you have to ask yourself.
You might have to make a choice.
Yep.
There.
You have to ask yourself if you want to continue going down this path with that person. Because especially if you have children, it will be passed down, to them if nothing changes.
I'll make it clear. This is where I ended up landing. Your immediate family. This means your wife, your children come first. End of story, period.
Yes.
That is it. That's the easiest way that I can put this. That comes first. Okay. If you are defending dysfunctional people to try to keep peace in a family, your family, that is a problem. And I didn't see it that way for a long time because there's loyalty, there's love there, there's care, There's acknowledgement. There's understanding things that maybe your spouse doesn't, but it doesn't make them wrong. And it doesn't make you right. It doesn't. You have to make a choice. It is black and white. You guys know me by now. I'm not a black and white person, but your immediate family comes first. That is what matters, especially when children are involved. I defended my family to the end of the earth. And to some degree, I still do. But over time, I began to wake up more and more to what was really going on there. But once you get out of it, you can really see it. Like I said, you have to kind of take a step back for a little while and then you see it. And unfortunately, I was proven right about a lot of these suspicions. You were proven right about a lot of these suspicions that we had. And man, it was tough. So maybe you go low contact first. Maybe you go no contact, whatever it might be. It doesn't mean that you're being disloyal. It just means that you're refusing to perpetuate this dysfunction. You're not going to participate in it anymore. There's nothing wrong with that, man. It's just really tough to do as a couple. I know, because I didn't want to go along with it for a very long time, and you had to do it on your own for a long time, and that's going to cause friction. It feels like you're right. It isn't supportive. It lacks loyalty. But you were also really gentle and always very understanding with me, and because you understood the nuance too, because we grew up together. Remember, this wasn't like a family you married into at 35. We were teenagers together. You were in those homes. You understood.
But one of the hardest things too is it made me question if I was right for you. You know, like maybe you would have been better off with somebody who had similar dynamics in their family, to where they would be more understanding of what was going on. But then I think that, oh man, that might kind of be a shit show if you were with somebody like that, because then you would just enable each other in a way. But then I'm like, it was one of the hardest things that I've struggled with a lot, is just, am I right for you? Because I don't know if, like, this is my values. I think we might have different values when it comes to the family stuff.
I wouldn't have stuck around if I didn't know it was good for me in the end.
I guess.
What is life without challenge? Challenging your belief, challenging your preconceived notions about things, previously held ideas. What is life without challenge? I personally value that quite a bit. And so I like to have people around me that do that, that don't let me get away with anything. I've always loved that. But
then I fear that you will resent me one day for having these boundaries and for standing up for myself.
No, I don't think it really works that way. Not in our case anyway. Could that work in someone else's? Yeah, maybe it could. Maybe it could. You know, if you could just be a little more chill about shit, then we'd be fine and we wouldn't have any problems. But at the end of the day, it didn't fix the problem. Being quiet doesn't fix the problem.
No.
Not saying anything doesn't actually fix the problem. And remember, if you've got children here, you have all the right in the world to defend those children, to make sure that they don't fall into that. They don't see that stuff. They don't pick up those patterns. Remember, we're trying to break patterns. We're trying to break generational cycles here. And that requires someone to stand up and say, I call bullshit. And that is what it is, man. It is what it is. I'm not going to resent you for it. I don't think I've ever resented you for it. I think deep down, I've always known that you had my best interest at heart, and that you've always...
Yeah, because I don't want to ever push anybody to do something they don't want to do. This was just something that screamed at me. Always had, you know?
Yeah.
It was just it was so inside me. It was just in my gut. It was my instincts screaming at me that I just have to let this out.
Yeah, man. If you find yourself in these kinds of situations, there's no easy answer for any of this stuff.
No.
It's no different than you knowing that sobriety is best for someone, that a path of growth is best for someone. How's it working for you that you have that information and they don't buy in? It's the same thing, right? You can know that what's best for someone, and you can voice that stuff. You can tell them till you're blue in the face, but they've got to want it for themselves, like anything else. I think that you've always done an amazing job at communicating that stuff over time and having patience for it, and like never giving up and never relenting. But also, I had to be willing to hear that message.
Yeah.
And that's the X factor. Is your spouse someone that's going to just get pissed and run off and crawl back to that familiar family that, you know, with those dynamics that that's just comfortable in? Or are they going to stand up and do the opposite? I don't know. That's the X factor. There's no way to really tell that. You can't manipulate people to get them to do what you want. You could end up having to leave that situation permanently if it's that bad.
If it goes against your values. And that's crazy. Even how you can look at it too. It's not like anybody's necessarily wrong in the situation. It's just that our values don't match, and I can't, be in a relationship with somebody where our values don't match.
Yeah, I don't want to be part of that. So I just don't want to be part of that. So it's really tough for a spouse to identify this stuff and to see this stuff, and then the addicted person not seeing it. But doesn't mean there's not some things you can do to influence it, but just understand that your influence is going to be limited at some point to their willingness to hear that message.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times where we'll get questions where people will ask, well, how do I get their family to understand my point of view and stop enabling and stopping that?
What's your experience with that?
Good luck. I mean, honestly,
Seriously.
like there's nothing you can do in that situation. Honestly, like it needs to be based on you and your spouse and your nuclear family, your little family, not the others. You cannot change their mind. You cannot get them to see your point of view. It is not even, don't even try.
Yeah. And we've got, if you're a listener to our podcast, I hope you know about our free Facebook community as well. Did you mention? I don't think you mentioned it earlier. We got a free Facebook community where, listen, they're not run by therapists. This is just people supporting people. It's people who have similar life experiences. Given their perspective on what they've done, how they handled something, maybe you hear something in there that really helps you. And we don't just unpack, we unpack life in those calls. We unpack everything. It's not just about your addicted spouse. Maybe you just need to vent sometimes, but we're talking about this stuff too. It can be really beneficial because no one gets it. No one gets it. You talk to your neighbor up the street about this stuff, and they'll be, oh yeah, my in-laws, man, they keep bringing the wrong dish every Thanksgiving. Like, no, dude, I got real fucking problems. Like, no, we're talking about real problems. And if you tell them, they're going to think that you're crazy. It sounds crazy, but other crazy people will be crazy together. Okay.
Yeah.
You can talk to us about it.
Yes.
It's just, you got to be around people that get it. And we have an amazing community of listeners that get it. So I hope to see you at one of these things. But this is a really difficult one because it doesn't have like a hard, fast answer. There are things that you can do to protect yourself, like you've done. You had to remove yourself first. We had to go through that painful period where we were kind of at odds about it. And then, as I'm trying to be the hero and fix it all, I had to see it for myself too. Ultimately, I had to choose my marriage and my spouse over the dysfunction. And that sounds crazy to say, but man, when you're raised in it and that's all you've ever known, you don't know any different. It feels disloyal. You feel like you're a traitor. You feel like you're abandoning people. But just remember that if you're an adult, you get to be an adult. You don't have to parent your children. You don't have to stay in that system. You need to go be an adult and live your life. Your parents become mentors at a certain point in your life, and if they're not people that have your best interest at heart, if they're not people that have life experience to offer that can really be beneficial to you, that relationship is very superficial. I think at that point, they're people you stay in touch with, but you certainly don't need to be emotionally enmeshed with them. You don't need to be taking money from them. You don't need to be tied into that system with those golden handcuffs. You have to learn how to have those boundaries. And that's been really tough for me to learn later in life. I wish I would have learned sooner, but like many things, we figure it out when we figure it out. So I hope that this has been helpful. If anything, validating. You probably didn't get too many answers from this. If anything, I hope you just know that you're not alone. We've been through this shit. Maybe over time we'll explore and dig into more of this and get more out there about it. But just it's delicate because it's not just my story to tell, right? But I know for you have a major story there to tell that can really help people.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I hope it's been helpful for people.
Yes. Apologies for the brain not working tonight. I don't know what my deal is. I'm doing great on my little wheelie rehab, but for some reason, like I just cannot. I'm off coffee, so
dude,
maybe that's what it is.
We come in to record, and what's wild is like you're not always at your best whenever you're in front of a camera with a microphone and you're supposed to be having these conversations. I think some days like I show up with I want to have all these great things to say, but when I get on the spot,
it's
I just blank. And then an hour after we release the episode, I'm like, shit.
Oh, I should have said that.
I do that all the time too.
I
man.
do it. Yeah.
So anytime you guys listen to these episodes, like you're getting about 10% of what we really meant to get out. So but I still hope that they're helpful.
One day, and I've wanted to do this, I wanted to just record like our pre-show discussion because I feel like our pre-show discussion is so good. Like we just kind of just have a conversation.
Just let it fly.
But then when we're in here, it's like,
we try to structure it in a way that makes sense.
I think that's what it is. And sometimes when we're talking about it beforehand, it makes sense, but it's not as structured, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to do a live show someday and take listener questions.
How do you do that? Can you do that?
Live shows?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
you rent a venue and you invite people and then
live. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean like an in-person event where you have people from the audience. They have a microphone that's tied to the system and they ask questions.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
What the hell were you thinking?
You were explaining it to me as if like I was some random person asking you. But as your wife, you should have been like, what do you mean? How would you not know what the fuck a live
I want to know what you thought I meant.
Like if we were live on Patreon or TikTok or whatever it was, and then I was thinking,
dude, yeah,
I was thinking
that would be even easier, actually.
Yeah, and we do that. We do that sometimes, but not podcast wise. Like, what if we did? I don't know. We need to brainstorm.
We can do that. We can have a room that people jump into and ask questions, and we can record them through our mixer, and we could respond to those questions too.
Okay,
and just give like full on unfiltered answers.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Hope that's been helpful for you guys as we explore dysfunctional family units and how finances can play into that. So hope it's been helpful. We'll touch on this one again. We'll get more into this. And if you have suggestions for episodes, let us know. Click the link on whatever podcast app you listen to and submit one. Just remember, they're anonymous. We don't know who asked them and we can't respond to them. So just drop the information there. And if it's something we can use, then we'll use it.
Yep.
So thanks for listening. Until next time, I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.